All right, let's talk Los Angeles Chargers. Obviously, big offseason for the Chargers. Really solid first year under Harbaugh, made it to the postseason. Disappointing in, but it's undeniable this team is on the upswing. But what also is undeniable is this team has a few key holes they must address this offseason in order to take that next step. Fortunately for the Chargers, it looks like the Chiefs are ready to take a step back. The Broncos are solid but not spectacular, and the Raiders, while seem to be trending in a good direction, have a long way to go. So it looks like things are shaping up very well in the AFC West for the Los Angeles Chargers to take a hold of that division for the first time since the Philip Rivers days. But they have to get this offseason right. There's a number of key players that could be quality fits to address some key needs on this Chargers roster. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the area everyone wants to talk about with the Chargers, and that is the wide receiver position. There's a couple guys out there that would be great fits for exactly what the Bolts are trying to do. So, Miles, I will throw it over to you to get us going. Let's talk wide receiver fits, free agent fits here for the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, Nick, I think wide receiver for the Chargers is a must get. I think this is a team that really needs to nail it down because what they got now, Conky, he's a great player, but they need to get those other positions down. Justin Herbert, excuse me, really needs to get his weapons with this team. And I got a couple great options here. Starting off, I think the first guy that I think of when I think of Chargers is you got to get a playmaker in there. A guy like Elijah Moore really is kind of intriguing. You can't really take his stats at face value, and we'll cover those really quickly. Elijah Moore, 25 years old, PFF grade last season, 58.5, receiving grade, 58.6, but drop grade, pretty high, 71.3. But he's been with the Browns for a while. He's been really, really poor quarterback teams. It's just something that's been absolutely dismal. Horrible situation for him. I think he's young. He's 25 years old. He's still got gas in the tank. The Browns got him to bring him in as a playmaker, but it's not his fault that they've been horrible at curating that quarterback position. Deshaun Watson's been the worst quarterback I think I've seen in the last few years, and whoever they've got in to fill in for him hasn't been too much better. So I think Elijah Moore, diamond in the rough type of player for this team. I think it would be a really, really interesting pickup here for them. But secondly, I think that the next guy that they think, another diamond in the rough, because at first I'm thinking to myself, Amari Cooper, that could be an interesting fit for this team. But then I think, who kind of supplanted Amari Cooper going into the playoffs? And that's Mac Hollins. Mac Hollins was a really interesting player coming into this season. He's a big body type of guy that kind of fit another receiver into this group they don't have. He's 6'4", kind of a bigger guy, be a good red zone target, and I think Matt Collins as well has been good. And what's another thing that's been great about Hollins? You look at his stats here, 31 years old, his PFF grade 61.6, 63.6 receiving grade, but in only 80.5 drop grade. Both these guys, they don't drop footballs. And that's something we've seen with the Chargers quite a lot lately. So I think both these guys, really interesting options for the Chargers. Nick, though, I'm curious, what are your thoughts with the wide receiver position here with the Chargers?
So the Chargers have a couple strategies here, and I think it's a good direction to be in. You can choose to basically go 100% aggressive into shifty, elusive, slot-ish kind of receivers with Elijah Moore, pairing with McConkey, or you go for diversity, right? You go for, we're going to have a shifty guy, we're going to have a big, strong guy. That's sort of the Mac Hollins route, right? So you have a couple options there as a Chargers organization and which direction you want to go. I kind of like bringing in a bunch of shifty guys. I thought the Tom Brady offense there at the end of the 2010s was really, really hard to defend just because it didn't matter how you play. There was going to be one mismatch because they had so many guys that could get a separation that were on good working relationships with Brady. Obviously that was the Edelman days. That was, of course, the Hogan days. They had White as the running back, right? They had a lot of guys that just understood Danny Amendola, a lot of guys that just understood separation, how to get that half step open, smart, accurate quarterback. Herbert obviously falls under that mold. I kind of like the shifty, elusive thing. I like Elijah Moore. He's the case study of a talented player who has played with nothing but terrible organizations his entire career. He was drafted by the Jets and then went to the Cleveland Browns. You talk about bad organizational quarterback head coaching opportunities. My God, it literally cannot get worse. And to go to the New York Jets, languish there, and then your reward is the Cleveland Browns. This is just a disaster. I feel bad for him, totally honest, because coming out of Ole Miss, I thought he was a great football player, had some maturity issues at one point, fixed all that at the end of his college career, was trending the right direction. He has all these great sort of advanced analytic stats where he just gets a lot of great separation. I think it's one of those, yards per separation per route run. He's among the leaders in the NFL for most of the season in his career, which means he's usually open. He just doesn't have quarterbacks who can get him the ball or coaches who know how to use them in the correct way. I think Elijah Moore paired with McConkey, I think is the best solution for this Chargers offense. But Matt Collins isn't bad either. Again, if you want the kind of diverse approach and kind of have the Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside kind of game in terms of a big, strong receiver on the outside and McConkey working the slot on the inside to kind of hit teams a couple different ways. I prefer both shifty routes. I think that's a really tough thing, especially as teams try to go back to more power football concepts. I think if you have guys who can generate those sort of shifty breaking cuts and force teams to really make a decision, in which case they either really have to rely on man coverage and then trust the guys in the box to stop the run, or they have to go into zone and get just carved to pieces by these quick guys on quick routes all game long with yards after catch. It's a tough situation to be in. I like shifty guys for that situation. But speaking of shiftiness, right? One situation the Chargers have to address, obviously, going forward is the edge of this defense. We think Bosa is likely no longer going to be there, but they're probably going to trade him and cut him. That's up in the air. A lot of discussions about Mack, what they're going to do at that position with Khalil Mack. He is likely gone at this point, although there are chances he can bring him back. Regardless what happens, they're going to need to make a few moves when it comes to the edge, and there's two guys that are actually perfect fits. Let's go ahead and jump into my favorite player that's available that no one is talking about. We've covered him a couple days ago, and that's Malcolm Kuntz. This is a guy from the Las Vegas Raiders who in 2023 was a breakout star. We broke down his film at the time. He was winning one-on-one opportunities, getting sacks, being productive all the time the second half of 2023. He was just an unstoppable force as a pure edge rusher. And if we want to pull up his numbers right here just so anyone can see him, he's 26 years old. His PFF grade was 81.3. Again, going back to his last season, he was hurt in 2024. His run defense grade was 66. Not bad, but obviously not his strength. His pass rush grade is 79, right? Again, he's a good pass rusher. He could come in at a fair price, I think sub $10 million on an average per year basis, APY basis. I think he would be a steal. I think whoever gets Malcolm Kuntz, they got the steal of the offseason. I think this kid is that good. He's a special player. But if you don't go Malcolm Kuntz, right, and Malcolm Kuntz is sort of the aggressive play, the steal. If you want the steady, known commodity veteran, I think you look at a guy like Josh Sweat coming out of the Philadelphia Eagles organization, winning organization, Super Bowl winning kind of culture thing, bringing that to the Chargers. That would make a lot of sense. And Sweat is just an all around solid player. Is he going to be an all pro? Is he going to be, the level of, notoriety like Bosa or Mack? Absolutely not. But you talk about down in and down out, just consistent ball player. That's what Sweat is, and his numbers back it up. If you look at his PFF grade, 76, run defense grade, 69, pass rush grade, 71 and a half. Very tightly clustered right there because he's just a good, solid, consistent football player. Far from a superstar. You'll probably have to overpay for him just a smidge just because he comes from the Philadelphia Eagles. Usually, when you get teams coming off a Super Bowl champion roster, those players get bid a lot by the competition. So it's sort of a decision here for the Chargers. Do they try and get the guy coming off an injury with an incredible future in Malcolm Kuntz, who's more of a pass rusher, or do they pay maybe 5-10% more to just nail down Josh Sweat, an elite do everything team guy, just kind of fits what the Chargers want to do culture wise? Is he going to get you 20 sacks? No. Is he going to be the best run defender? No, but he's going to be really good at everything and overall a really nice player. 76 PFF grade, that's pretty darn good. That's almost Pro Bowl level overall holistically. I think it's two different approaches here. Again, I'm a Malcolm Kuntz guy. I think he's going to be a superstar, but if you don't go that route, Josh Sweat is not a bad alternative to take.
Yeah, Nick, and I kind of agree with you. I think Sweat, he's the, I guess, safer bet, I would say, is the guy that comes in. You've seen him play in big moments. You've seen what he's able to do. But I don't think he has as high of a ceiling as a guy like Kuntz is. And like you said, we reviewed his film 2023. Kuntz, he was that guy. Kuntz was absolutely phenomenal. I think you can bring him in, get him at more of a discount than you can with a guy like Sweat. I think you bring in Kuntz, you're going to be happy with whatever he puts on the table here because it's not going to cost a whole lot of money. But I think this is going to be a guy on this defense, on this Chargers defense, going to be absolutely dominant. I think he's going to slip in there. People are going to underestimate him. And eventually, you'll be saying, Joey Bosa, who? We love Malcolm Kuntz. He's going to be our guy. So out of the two, like I said, we picked these guys. I don't think you can go wrong with anyone. But if I was in charge, if I was Joe Ortiz and I had to make the moves, I'm leaning Malcolm Kuntz. I think Sweat's a good alternative as well. But Malcolm Kuntz, I agree with you. He's a guy that I really like. And I think he helps out at a major position of need. When we talk about positions of need right now, one last position of need for this Chargers team is the running back position. And you really kind of got to be careful with this. It can, after what happened last year with guys like Josh Jacobs, with guys like Derrick Henry, with guys like Saquon Barkley, you could pay a lot for running backs, but I think we have some good options here for the Chargers that are both good fits and really could be not super, super break the bank expensive. Let's get into the first one for me. It's Najee Harris coming off the Pittsburgh Steelers. It kind of feels like they don't want him anymore. They're moving on from him. Now he's available. They declined his 5th-year option. And I really like Najee Harris because he brings a lot of solid stuff to the table. He's a 1,000-yard rusher last year still. He's a big body back. He can get the tough yards. And let's look at his stats right here per PFF. Got Najee Harris, 26 years old, 77.9 PFF grade, 78.3 rushing grade, and a 91.3 fumble grade. He doesn't fumble the football. This guy can hold on to the rock. And that's not the only thing indicative about a guy like Harris. He has great hands, too. I think he's a lethal threat out of the backfield in the receiving department. Had 324 receiving yards this year, multiple games over 50 receiving yards. I think he's an underrated receiver. I think he can come in and be a good outlet for a guy like Justin Herbert. And that also kind of leads me into my second option here. We're talking about none other than Ty Johnson from the Buffalo Bills. Really interesting one. Probably one you don't hear about too often. I think he's a little bit more under the radar style of pick. This guy, very interesting as well. Let's get into his stats. Ty Johnson, 27 years old, 73.8 PFF grade, 77.9 rushing grade, and an 83.9 fumble grade. Again, this guy doesn't fumble the ball. Very good in the fumble department, as well as this guy's a big time receiving threat. He had that game against Detroit where he went off for 114 yards. The game before that, 55 yards. I think this guy really, really talented as a receiver as well. So both these guys can come in and be good outlets for Herbert, and they'll be strong runners as well. I think either one of these guys you can't go wrong with, but I'm curious, Nick, what do you think about the running back position here for the Chargers?
I like them both, right? I'm a big Johnson guy. I think he's like the perfect third down receiving running back that every team always like. It's like a cliche that you need to have, just a guy who can make big plays in the passing game. He averaged over 5 yards a carry running the football too, so he can get it done. Limited touches running the football, but still very productive in terms of his efficiency running the football. But he's also and predominantly known for being a big time pass catcher out of the backfield. And I think getting Ty Johnson and honestly pair him with Najee Harris, I like the Chargers getting both these guys because I think together they're like the perfect combination. Najee Harris is kind of a shifty, elusive, even though he's a big guy, he's really known for making people miss. But he's your standard old school runs for 3, runs for 5, runs for 4, runs for 6. He's not a guy that can break or hasn't broken a lot of huge runs in his career. He's just a steady Eddie, get the football, fall forward, get 5 yards, and then do it again. That's his career, right? The real knock against Najee Harris with his productivity, again, he's had what I think 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons, is that he doesn't have those monster breakout games or those monster huge runs that can really pad the stats. The good news is the Chargers really stylistically, they use Justin Herbert in a lot of ways for those big plays, those play action bombs off of that. They're not looking for a home run hitting running back. I mean, they'll take it when it comes, but they want to just establish a run and be physical and win and get to 2nd and 5 and get to 3rd and 1 and then get to 2nd and 5 again right a few plays later. That's how Harbaugh, that's how Monken wants to operate, and then let your superstar quarterback generate the big plays. That's how it worked with the 49ers with Harbaugh. That's how it worked with Harbaugh when he was at Michigan. That's how Monken ran things when he was with the Baltimore Ravens, right? Run the football, get your 3, 4, 5, 6 yards with the running back, and then your quarterback generates the high octane offense. And I think Najee Harris fits that perfectly. And then you got Johnson, who's the perfect complement to that. Just again, a sneaky, elusive receiving guy, very different stylistically from Najee Harris in terms of how they play. Both are very good receivers out of the backfield. That's one thing the Chargers were atrocious in last year. Combined their top 3 receiving running backs for 40 total catches. 40 catches combined over your top three. That is not going to get it done in today's NFL, especially when you're running the football that much. Teams will eventually, and we saw that a little bit in the playoff game at times, people just decided to jump the receivers on the outside and then commit to the run. They didn't have a receiving threat with the running backs because they had matchup nightmares. If you have linebackers inside and sometimes safeties in the box trying to really focus on the run and then have your corners jump the receivers' routes, the way you can easily break that is receivers, because or is running backs, excuse me, that are good receiving threats, because they linebackers then who are playing the run, they get out leveraged immediately with an out-breaking running back route, right? And that's one of the reasons why Johnson was so successful, because of the Cook Josh Allen running combination with the Buffalo Bills. People had to change their strategy to stop that. It allowed Johnson to out leverage them from the get go, and he created a lot of big plays. It's one of the reasons why the Lions running backs have a lot of great receiving yards too. Everyone comes in to stop the run, they're out of position to stop the receiving running back in the passing game. That's what the Chargers lacked last year more than anything else. Everyone talked about the issues at the wide receiver position, and it was a big problem, undeniably so. And we talked, of course, about addressing it. Good news is for the Chargers, again, 60 million plus cap space, they can get it done. But I think the big thing strategically they were missing was consistency out of the receiving running back department, because teams, again, they could jump the receivers and then play the run with the linebackers. If you have two running backs in Najee Harris and Ty Johnson who can catch the ball in the backfield and generate big plays doing so, it forces teams to change up everything they do stylistically. They have to widen out their box a little bit. They have to play a lot more zone. It allows guys like McConkey to work free and generate some pretty successful plays. You're able to run the football a little bit better. It just makes life a little easier. Bringing in Najee Harris and Ty Johnson, again, I like them both. Go after them both. You can certainly afford it. I think it's the perfect fit to what the Chargers need on the offensive side of the ball.